I stumbled upon the haunted Appalachian family of 1899, and their dark secrets are terrifying me. I never should have opened that door. The moment I did, a chill crept up my spine like icy fingers. My heart raced. What was I thinking? Just another day exploring the creepy, forgotten nooks of the Appalachian woods. Just me, my curiosity, and the weight of old legends hanging in the air. My routine was simple: hike, investigate, snap a few photos. But today, everything changed. I heard the whispers. The townsfolk spoke of a family that vanished a century ago, leaving behind nothing but shadows and unanswered questions. The Harmon family, lost to time or maybe to something darker. The house stood there, cloaked in thick vines and gloom. Its windows, like empty eye sockets, stared me down. The air was damp and thick, making it hard to breathe. That smell, something terrible, like wet earth and decay, hit me as I approached. I could feel the weight of history pressing down. As I creaked the door open, darkness swallowed me whole. I stepped inside, and the temperature dropped further. A faint whisper seemed to dance through the dim light, slithering around me. Was it my imagination, or were the walls alive? Suddenly, I heard a faint thud from upstairs. My pulse quickened. I peered around the barren room, my eyes drawn to the peeling wallpaper, revealing layers of despair beneath. Shadows crept in the corners, merging with the gloom. I listened carefully, heart pounding in my ears. Then, a sound of soft, dragging noise from above. Panic surged in my chest. I took a step back, but my foot nudged something cold and solid. A dusty old photograph slipped into my gaze, showing the Harmon family in happier times. Their faces seemed frozen in a macabre smile. In that moment, everything fell silent.
No whispers, no creaks.
Just me and the suffocating stillness. Then, I heard it Againa child's giggle, echoing down the staircase. My breath hitched. This wasn't just an old house. No, this was their sanctuary, their trap. With dread filling my veins, I turned slowly, ready to bolt, yet as I did, the door slammed shut behind me with a force that rattled my bones. My heart stopped. I realized I was not alone. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Ice coursed through my veins as I realized the door I had just crossed was sealed. A clammy force pressed against my back, but I couldn't turn around. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to escape this entangled web of terror. Yet terror anchored me to the spot. The faint giggle, echoing like a distant chime of glass, hung thickly in the air. It reverberated off the dark walls, slipping into the corners where shadows coiled like serpents, waiting for their moment to strike. I strained my ears, desperate to discern any other sound: a heartbeat, a breath, anything, but all that met me was that haunting laughter, weaving promises of nightmares and torment. I had to know, was it a trick of my mind, or could that laughter belong to one of the Harmon children? In my anxiety, I took a steadying breath, gathering what courage I could muster. With each step toward the staircase, the floorboards creaked ominously beneath my weight, as if protesting my intrusion into this long-neglected domain. Every footfall sounded a war drum announcing my presence, and I was painfully aware of the muffled whispers that crept around me like a shroud. "Get out," they hissed, the syllables pushing against my sanity. But where could I go? The only route was up, to the source of that innocent giggle, which was turning deviously sinister in my mind. That I approached the staircase, the dim light flickering against the warped banister. The air was dense, thickening with a palpable sense of foreboding. As I ascended, the laughter morphed, taking on a haunting note that sent chills skittering down my spine. It echoed again, clear and chilling, now tinged with a tone of malice. "Come play with us," it beckoned, each word slathered in childish innocence but twisted with an underlying threat. Halfway up, I paused, casting a glance back toward the door. Perhaps the resolve pounding in my chest was a fool's errand. But curiosity proved stronger than fear. I took a breath, gathering resolve, and stepped onto the landing. The floor here was even more warped, timber warped by time, whispering secrets and sins of the long-gone family. The door at the far end of the hallway beckoned, splintered and painted in peeling white. My heart pounded violently as I crept closer, the air turning cold enough to fog my breath. A chill danced across my skin, like icy fingers tracing pathways down my spine. I could almost sense the eyes watching, waiting, festering with secrets just out of reach. Before I reached the door, the laughter became a cacophony, a chorus of children's voices swirling violently around me, drowning out each thought, each ounce of rationality. "Join us!" they cried, the urgency now palpable, reverberating through my very being. That I hesitated, the heaviness overwhelming my senses. Was it curiosity that drove me onward, or a more sinister force? I pressed a trembling hand against the door. It was cold as death. With a jolt, I shoved it open, gasping as the room flooded with shadows, and the laughter stopped. In the dim light stood 3 children, 2 girls and a boy huddled together, their faces pale and drawn, framed by tangled black hair that hung like tendrils of darkness. Their eyes, hollow and yearning, bore into me with an intensity that threatened to consume everything I was. But it wasn't just their eyes. It was the smell of musty decay that wafted around them, an echo of the lives they led, the horrors they experienced. "Will you play?" the oldest girl asked, her voice hollow yet inviting, like a vulture's call. "No, I can't," I stammered, backing away, but they only took a step closer, shadows stretching impossibly behind them. Then I felt an icy grip wrapping around my ankle. I looked down in horror to see rooted hands emerging from the floor, grotesque and skeletal, dragging me down. A scream lodged in my throat as the children's faces twisted, their once innocent expressions now transformed into something grotesque and monstrous. "Don't leave us," they chanted in unison, the walls vibrating with their voice. As I struggled against the clammy hands reaching up for me from the abyss, I felt my footing slip. Just as the darkness threatened to swallow me whole, I caught a glimpse of the photograph I'd found earlier, the Harmon family, all smiles and benevolence. But now, even that image was twisting, a grim reminder of the very danger that entangled me. And in that final moment of terror, I realized with horror that I wasn't just their guest. I was about to become part of their dark history. As the creeping cold consumed my ankle, I felt the pull of despair resonate through me, the children's chants creating a twisted symphony of torment. They moved closer, their once soft features morphing into something grotesque, shadows dancing in flickering light as their eyes glimmered with haunting intent. "Oh, please," I cried, a wave of panic surging through me, but it only fueled their enthusiasm. With every ounce of energy I had, I heaved upward, my heart racing against the inevitable pull of the rotting hands caressing my skin. The distortion of their laughter echoed deafeningly in my mind, each note laced with desperation and a hollow joy that promised nothing but suffering. With one powerful jerk, I managed to free my leg from the death grip, stumbling back into the far wall of the room. As I blinked back tears of frustration and anxiety, I realized the children had halted their advance. They simply stared, their expressions shifting between boredom and indignation. "Why won't you play?" the boy asked, his voice now a soft hiss that reverberated with more than just curiosity. Desperate to escape, my gaze darted around the dim chamber. Shadows curled and writhed like smoke as I noticed an exit, a narrow window choked with grime and cobwebs, just high enough that perhaps I might squeeze through if I could reach it. "No, you can't leave. Not without the game," the oldest girl insisted, her lips twisting in an eerie smile, the promise of cruelty flickering like candlelight in her eyes. The whispers returned, rushing against my ear like frayed whispers of those who had come before, warning me. As if on cue, the horde of spectral fingers from the floor began to reform, pushing through the cracks in the timber. They were back visages of the Harmon family, their skin mottled, their eyes sunken with the weight of eternal sorrow. That I turned back to the children, looking for solace, but instead, I saw their features sharpening, becoming more vibrant and grotesque with each passing moment. They were transforming into echoes of violent moments captured throughout the decades their games had not been innocent. One of the girls stretched a tear-stained hand towards me, silkily murmuring, "Join us." Relive the game. I couldn't discern whether it was the room growing darker, or if it was my own soul dimming in the face of their torment. The air thickened, and the scent of decay clawed at my throat, nearly choking me on the horror of it all. Pieces of time flitted past me, memories woven into the fabric of the walls, children's tears absorbed and mixed with blood. Behind them, shadows swirled, emerging as faint outlines of the previous occupants. Forever trapped in an endless loop of torment, in that moment of dread, courage ignited a spark in me. I couldn't let them win. I spun towards the rotting window, a homage to freedom. With one desperate leap, I reached for the frame, fingers grazing the edge as the wails of the spectral children crescendoed, warning me of peril, coaxing me back. "Don't you want to play? You can join our family. Be one of us," they pleaded, their voices now a sinister harmony. But a sudden thundering noise erupted behind me, drowning out their cries. I turned just in time to see the door at the far end of the room shatter inward from a force I couldn't comprehend. An entity pulsated there, cloaked in a heavy mist, its form ever shifting, a grotesque parody of humanity. It whispered my name, coaxing me with velvet sorrow, a sound so enticing I nearly succumbed. But the children knew better. They recoiled, their eyes wide with sudden terror. "Run!" one of them screamed. "He wants you. He won't let you go." My heart raced, thoughts blurring as the air cracked with tension. I felt the floor tremble beneath my feet as I lunged for the window, scraping against the wood with fervor. What I thought was safety was now an illusion. I pressed desperately against the frame, my body fighting for escape, the shadows surrounding me growing denser. And just when I thought I could break free, icy hands seized me from behind, dragging me back with a force that defied logic. My scream echoed, swallowed by the inky void as the spectral figure loomed closer, its essence a cold dread pulsating through the room. But in that split second before the darkness closed in, I glimpsed the family portrait one last time, a twisted recollection of the Harmons' last embrace. Their smiles had morphed into grim, predatory grins. Suddenly, my mind flooded with fragmented images, each captured moment of joy countless centuries old, revealing a horrifying truth. They had taken something from me, something I was never meant to part with. As the darkness enveloped me, a single thought surged like a final spark of rebellion. They had played their game, but so had I, and tonight, the stakes had changed forever. Then, I felt myself breaking, the fabric of my being tethered to the room, unraveling as I was pulled into the shadows, my existence flaring wildly between what was and what must never be. And in that pitch-black embrace, I could hear the children's laughter once more. But it was no longer a melody. It was a dirge, the eerie sound of a game just beginning. The laughter faded, and with it, the remnants of my will. Darkness blanketed me like a thick fog, and a shiver coursed through my spine as I felt the cold caress of unseen fingers trailing along my arms. Every breath I took felt constricted, as if the very essence of this malignant space sought to siphon away my life. Suddenly, I was yanked abruptly, spinning through the void until I landed hard against the ground. I gasped for breath, my chest heaving as I clawed at the dirt beneath me, feeling the rough earth scraping against my skin. The chill penetrating my bones suggested I had been transported, still trapped. But somewhere else entirely. I blinked into the muted light that filtered through a canopy of twisted branches overhead. My heart raced as I struggled to comprehend the ethereal surroundings of forest, but not of this world. The trees loomed unnaturally tall, their gnarled bark twisting into faces that sneered down at me, their hollow eyes reflecting an ancient malice. Wisps of fog coiled around their roots, swirling like spirits caught in an endless dance of despair. "Welcome," a voice echoed, low and grotesque, reverberating through the air. I whipped around, searching for the source, but all I saw were shadows flickering at the corner of my vision. "You've become one of us now." It was as if the forest itself spoke, a symphony of whispers wrapping around me like a long-lost lament. My heart sank as realization hit the children had been but a gateway, and this woods was the true prison, the graveyard of their restless souls. Don't be afraid, the voice continued, now melodic, yet dripping with malice. You are our plaything, and the games have merely begun. Something shifted in the underbrush, and a chill swept over me as the children emerged from the shadows, their forms gliding through the dim light like ethereal wraiths. They were not alone. Behind them, figures began to materialize, adults with hollow gazes and twisted grins, spectral remnants of the Harmon family, bereft of life and purpose, forever cursed to enact their false cheer. Come play with us. One of the children beckoned, clapping her hands in delight. Only the sound reverberated like a hollow drum. The forest shuddered in response, an unseen force enrapturing me, tugging me toward the family. Join the game, they echoed in unison, voices an unnerving harmony that clawed at my sanity. I clenched my fists, fighting the compulsion, yet their outstretched hands tugged at the corners of my resolve. The moment lingered, a breath caught between choices I never agreed to make. I glanced around in desperation, searching for an escape that seemed ever more elusive. The shadows twisted around me like serpents, their whispers urging me to give in, to play to be one with the echoes of those who had suffered before. The world began to warp, the ground rippling beneath my feet like a surface of water, as I caught glimpses of nightmarish memories, the anguish of the Harmon family as they thrust sharper objects pounding against the flesh of their own. Suddenly, an incongruous sound assaulted my ears, the tolling of a bell. It resonated through the fog like a death knell, its clang reaching out to me from somewhere deep within the forest. A glimmer of hope sparked. If there was a bell, there must be a way through. Don't listen to it, the oldest girl hissed, her visage twisting in dark rage as shadows loomed closer, smothering the light. That will take you further away. This is where you belong. Heart pounding, I turned from the children and the spectral family. I stumbled forward, the haunting laughter turning into shrieks of rage behind me as I forged through the oppressive fog, resolute to follow the tolling as I sprinted. I felt fingers reaching for me, brushing against my hair, my clothes, but I remained unyielding, driven by instinct alone. The chime guided me further into the trees, each step a battle against the murmurs clawing at my mind. If the forest was alive, then perhaps it could be outsmarted. Just as I thought I might glimpse freedom through a break in the trees, the last toll sounded. A blinding light erupted before me, enveloping everything in a bright luminescence that seared my vision, and then darkness. I hit a ground that resonated with a hollow thud, and as I blinked against the light, a new scene unfolded around me. A decrepit carnival sprawled beneath a bleak sky, its colors fading and peeling. The echoing laughter rang sharper now, more sinister, as I became aware of figures darting among the shadows, eyes gleaming with malice. New player, someone exclaimed, an invitation laced with dread. Let's see how long you can last. A shadow danced in the corner of my eye. They were back, every last soul who had ever been confined here, drawn to me with insatiable hunger. The familiar voices of the children melded with those of the tormented adults, creating an unnerving cacophony that echoed within me, a reminder that I was far from escaping their grasp. Suddenly, through the uproar, I heard the tolling bell again, but this time, it sounded as if it rang from my own chest. Before I could comprehend, the laughter crescendoed, sharp like glass, and the ground beneath me splattered in orange flames. Then, I caught sight of something far more horrifying, a figure in tattered clothing, blackened skin, framed by a flickering light. Their eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that froze my veins, and they began to move toward me, a smile spreading wide across lips cracked and rotten. Another family reunion. The figure rasped, voice seeping like poison into the air as the shadows thickened around us. A finger rose slowly, pointing directly at me, like an invitation to a fate from which there was no turning back, and just like that, despair filled the air once more, coiling like a serpent around my throat, choking out the final fragments of my will. I stumbled upon the haunted Appalachian family of 1899, and their dark secrets are terrifying me. The figure hovered closer, a grotesque marionette danced by unseen forces as its skeletal form jittered unnaturally, sending waves of revulsion through me. I could see now that the joyless grin stretched wide, revealing jagged teeth like broken tombstones, and in that moment, the laughter of the carnival was swallowed by a deafening silence. The entities in the shadows were no longer bored spectators. They were eager participants, drawn to the torment that festered in my chest. "Oh, you remember the games?" The figure croaked, spoken with a tone that echoed like a forgotten hymn among the ruins of this forsaken carnival. "We had so much fun. But it's your turn now." A grotesque chuckle accompanied the words, bubbling just beneath the surface. As if the laughter was a song long overdue, I stumbled backward, my eyes darting, desperate for a way out. The carnival's atmosphere thickened, and the air became oppressive, stifling my breath as the walls of my reality began to close in. Every flash of the flickering lights revealed more tortured faces, souls caught between despair and rage, elongated limbs unfurling toward me like the roots of ancient trees. "Welcome, welcome!" A chorus of eerie, childlike voices lilted through the gloom, beckoning me to join their twisted jubilation. The gruesome puppeteer extended a hand, skeletal fingers beckoning, a parody of sibling camaraderie. "Come play. We've saved the best for last. There are still secrets of the Harmon family left to unearth." My heart thundered wildly, igniting a primal instinct to flee. I pivoted, running past decrepit stalls and rusted rides that creaked like ancient bones, each step sending echoes of despair rippling through the pitch black. The bells tolling had faded into the void, and now I was left with nothing but the haunting memories of screams that choked upon their own agony. Just as I reached what appeared to be a warped funhouse mirror maze, an overwhelming compulsion seized my limbs. Shadows writhed beneath the surface. A strange laughter arose, echoing twisted fragments of gnashing teeth and frantic cries, their cries merging in a dissonant melody of past horrors. Before me, the mirrors warped the reflections, reflecting me back with layered faces, each twisted by anguish and grinning malice. "Find your truth," they cried, voices harmonizing as the mirrors began to shimmer and ripple like rain-soaked glass. "See your connection. You belong here." The vertigo threatened to engulf me. I braced against one of the cold mirrors, visions spinning as moments from my life coagulated into vision snatches of laughter entwined with shadows. The vivid faces of my family merging with the torment of the Harmon family, their anguish etched deep within the glass. I gasped, recognizing how easily the line between us had blurred. Both families bound by tragedies unspoken, festering with dark secrets. "Join us!" The mirrors shrieked, the reflections twisting into grotesque forms with every word, fingers pressing eagerly against the surface. "Only one can live, but perhaps we can share the darkness." With desperation coursing through my veins, I clenched my eyes shut and ripped my hand away, fleeing deeper into the nightmarish carnival. The laughter drowned in despair rose to a chilling crescendo, mingling with whispers that sank into my soul. I rushed past discarded clown heads and tattered banners, but the shadows trailed closer, their fingers brushing against my skin, each touch igniting icy burns. Suddenly, an ominous stillness rumbled through the air, halting my frantic pace. The ground quaked beneath me, and in that instant, the carnival erupted into chaos. The very skies above cracked with darkness, flickering like a faulty light bulb, projecting a macabre dance of twisted silhouettes against the backdrop. "Something's afoot." A voice roared, unnatural and echoing through the chaos. "No one escapes the show, especially not those entwined in our history." An eerie light burst forth from the center of the Carnivala trapdoor, wavering with invitation but surrounded by whispers laced with disbelief, pleading me to turn away, to run and save myself. Yet the ground beneath me quivered again, and in that moment, as figures exploded from the shadows with a cacophony of laughter and despair, I found myself drawn toward the light, a helpless moth flitting towards a flame. As I reached the door, darkness encircled me, tendrils of malevolence threatening to drag me back into a nightmare from which there was
no respite.
In a moment of sheer panic, I threw myself forward, into the radiant glow, hoping against hope that maybe this time the light would hold a truth I could finally grasp. But as everything plunged into brilliance, I realized too late what awaited on the other side. A face, resembling mine, grinning from the depths, eyes hollow and mouth stretching in a rictus of pure terror. Everything froze, and the carnival erupted with a deafening applause. My face reflected in the joyous chaos, and I understood in that haunting instant I was about to become the newest member of the Harmon family. I was yanked from the radiance of the trapdoor, stumbling onto a stage that resembled a graveyard of forgotten dreams, littered with remnants of laughter and pain. The illusions of the carnival faded, replaced by a menacing eeriness that clung to the air like decay. My heart raced, echoing louder against my ribcage, and I fought the instinct to scream. The cold grip of terror coiled around me tighter, choking any thoughts of escape. What loomed before me was a grotesque theater. The grandiose facade made from rotting wood, adorned with faded colors that whispered of joy long since lost. "Welcome, welcome," the figures around me chanted, their voices twisting into cacophony. They crowded the edges of the stage, faces wrought with anguish and pleasure intertwined, expressions of the damned swept together in a tableau of eternal torment. Among the audience, their eyes glowed with a manic hunger, hollow sockets absorbing the feeble light like planetoids stealing warmth from the sun. And then I heard the wheezing laugh of the puppeteer echoing through the theater, mingling with the morbid enchantment that forced me further into this malevolent play. "Will it be drama or tragedy?" he crooned, with a ragged breath that sparked a chorus of applause from the crowd. I realized I was the Futuria centerpiece in their sickly shrine of despair. The ground beneath me trembled. Even the walls of the stage seemed to breathe in anticipation. They were waiting, eager for the drama I would unwittingly perform. Colors swirled around me, and I felt my body jerk into place at the center of an ephemeral circular stage. Shadows danced, weaving through my limbs like serpents, clawing at my memories. Each heartbeat synchronized with the fervent rhythm of the audience, an archaic drumbeat that summoned dread. A figure dressed in the tattered remnants of a carnival ringmaster stepped forth. His grin a nightmarish mockery. "Your time is now," he declared, his voice deep and cavernous, swallowing the remnants of hope. "You will wear the mask of the Harmon family and share their legacy, both cursed and divine. Step into the tale. It's yours to mold." With a heavy thud, the heavy velvet curtain of the stage dropped, and enchanting lights flickered behind threads of smoke that spiraled like dwindling shadows. My legs moved of their own volition, as if they were separated from will and sanity, dragging me toward a hidden path with no choice but to follow. The world twisted once more, coiling around me in a spiral of darkness, and I found myself drawn down a corridor lined with warped mirrors, each echoing the deep, anguished cries of those who had donned the mask before me. Faces changed, boiling into caricatures of glee and madness, their mouths screaming silently beneath the surface. "Step through. Discover the truth," the reflections urged, hands pressed against the glass, fingers bending and clawing to reach me. "You will learn your purpose, where the Harmon family bonds meet." The truth? What truth could possibly be contained in these warped reflections? They were torment incarnate, sketching the outline of my very essence onto the canvas of despair. I fought against the drawing sensation, even as an alluring melody slithered through the air, coaxing me to delve deeper into the hollow truths encapsulated in these reflective prisons. Before I could step back, the mirrors shimmered violently, and a chilling voice whispered just beyond the veil, "Remember your connections, your roots. You cannot escape the outcomes set forth. You wandered here. Now let the darkness embrace you." Suddenly, the ground beneath me erupted, fissures gaping like the mouths of a wretched beast. I tumbled onto the cool, hard earth, landing in a moonlit grove, ancient trees that loomed like sentinels of despair. Their gnarled branches brushed against one another, rustling with secrets of the past, while the air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves. "Familiar, isn't it?" A voice called from the shadows, as a figure emerged, partially cloaked in shadow, reminiscent of a childhood specter. From beneath my bed, it was a face I recognized, not my own. But oh, so familiar, a gaunt visage framed by tangled hair, matching the haunted memory of family gatherings long forgotten. "Don't you remember me?" it croaked, voice intertwining with the memories that danced at the corners of my mind. "We are family. The Harmon clan, you were meant to find your way back to us. A tingle of recognition flickered through me as memories flooded my mind, intersecting and distorting, presenting a kaleidoscope of love and loss, of laughter turned sour. As I staggered backward, the figure smiled, and in that smile all revealed its grim truth. The carnival was more than a memory. It was my heritage, my fate. The wind howled like a wailing banshee, rustling the trees, swirling leaves spiraled into the air in a chaotic ballet as they seemed to draw closer to me. I was caught between past and present, a prisoner of ancestral echoes that sought to bind me to the specters who hungered for more. I can help you remember, the figure continued, a claw-like hand extending toward me. Let us share in the legacy of the Harmon family. Embrace the darkness, for it is your true kinship. I stood paralyzed, breath hitching as I struggled against the urge to accept their twisted invitation. Just as I grasped my courage, the trees quaked, uprooting their hold. The earth cracked, splitting wide beneath me, and beneath its surface, I could hear the screams of the damned echoing back, each shriek a reminder of what awaited, desperately. I turned to flee, but the laughter rose, thrumming like a frantic heartbeat, resonating with my every move as shadows closed in from all sides. You think you can escape? You are one of us now. As the darkness surged forward, I felt the weight of my familial ties pulling at my soul, and the last thing I saw was my reflection in countless eyes, deep and terrifying, each one filled with the promise that the carnival of horrors had only just begun. The air thickened with a dense fog, wrapping around me like a shroud as I sprinted blindly through the grove, the echoes of ancestral laughter morphing into guttural cries, pulling at my heels. Each stride felt heavier, as if the very shadows of the trees conspired to hold me back, whispering words of despair that melted into my thoughts, seeping into my very marrow. Driven by an insatiable dread, I stumbled into a clearing, its stark emptiness contrasting sharply with the oppressiveness that clung to the grove. The deep roots of ancient oaks grasped at the earth, their gnarled fingers curling like the limbs of a haggard crone. Rocking back and forth, the dental remnants of what seemed like an old carousel creaked amidst the cacophony of wind, its painted horses frozen in agonized expressions, long abandoned and resigned to this living nightmare.
Come closer.
The wind seemed to taunt, carrying the disembodied voices of forgotten souls. Join the dance of the damned. Reluctantly, I moved forward, drawn by an invisible tether that yanked at my heart. Shadows flitted around, and I caught a glimpse of tendrils creeping from the trees, reaching toward the carousel with an unholy lust. An icy shiver slinked down my spine, and my breath hitched as the horse's eyes glimmered with something insidious and intelligence, an abyssal hunger that sent a primal scream clawing up my throat. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and flashes of vivid lightning illuminated the swirling fog, a sudden betrayal that revealed fragments of memories. Scattered moments of laughter laced with sinister undertones blotted out in the flood of sensations. Was I being drawn into the carnival of spirit and blood? Did the Harmon family thrive on fear and despair, feeding the very ground beneath me with stories of sorrow long sealed? A piercing wail sliced through the night, shattering the silence like glass and causing the carousel to shudder as if it had awakened from a slumber too long. I skidded back as the horses began to move, their painted mouths widening in grotesque smiles that spoke of buried secrets, their eyes fixated on me with a fervor that ignited my fear. Welcome back, dear descendant. A chilling voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere, 1,000 whispers threading through the air. You are home. No longer could I resist the pull. The darkness surged around me, a tide of malevolent currents drawing me closer to the carousel. The horses began to spin, faster and faster, blurring into a whirlpool of colors that seemed to mock the very essence of joy. Around me, the forest came alive with the rustling of leaves, a collective murmur that unfurled a heady brew of grief and torment. Ride with us, the voice beckoned, and the carousel twisted rhythmically, summoning fragments of entities that slithered and writhed from the dark corners of my mind. Embrace your lineage. The truth of our curse will set you free. Gripped by an unrelenting compulsion, I approached one of the frothing steeds, reaching out despite the icy fingers of dread wrapping tighter. As my fingers grazed the surface, a surge of horrifying memories flickered before my eyes, children giggling in the summer sun, warmth from past embraces, and in their midst, shadowy figures hidden behind a veil of joy, their eyes dark like a void of hopelessness. Suddenly, the voice escalated into a thunderous roar. You are bound to this destiny. The Harmon lineage flows through you like blood through ancient veins. Join your family, embrace the darkness. A blinding flash split the night. The carousel spun out of control, fast, faster, until I was caught within its grip. The shadows lunged forward, clawing at my reality, and I felt my very essence being torn asunder. Swirls of torment twisted and enveloped like the choking smoke of a distant fire, flinging memories into chaos, a spermal of life woven with death. Desperate, I tried to pull away, collapsing to my knees as the laughter grew louder, a cacophony that threatened to swallow my very soul. Reveal your choice. Embrace us or be consumed. Before I could muster a response, horrific spectacle bloomed in front of me. The carousel broke, fracturing open like a shattered promise, and from its depths, a multitude of figures crawled forth, each grinning with an exuberance tinged in madness. They were the lost souls, the Harmon family prisoners of their own legacy, screaming in rapture, inching ever closer. And then I saw her, the gaunt figure I had seen earlier. Her eyes hungrily met mine, and within that hollow gaze, I finally recognized the truth. She wasn't just a reflection. She was me. Join us, she screamed, her voice echoing from all sides, layers upon layers of despair and madness crashing all around. We are you. Staggering back, realization clawed at my throat like claws of ice gripping my heart. My whole being trembled, awash in the morbid truth of bloodlines and bindings. It wasn't merely the past I was running from. It was my very nature, the horror of the Harmon family pulsating through my veins. And then, the shadows lunged forward, swarming me, dark tendrils lapping at my limbs as I teetered on the brink of a horrifying choice. Just as they closed in, I heard a final, resounding whisper from the depths of my soul that shattered the world around me. Will you embrace the darkness or will you forsake your kin forever? With that, the world dissolved into an abyss of screams, and in that terrifying moment, I realized there was no turning back. The screams subsided, swallowed by the suffocating void that stretched infinitely around me, a chasm of turbulence where shadows writhed and laughed in delight. Panic propelled my heart to pound loud enough to drown out the calls of those who were lost to the legacy of despair. I forced myself to focus, desperate to escape the entwining fingers of fate, the grotesque specters of my ancestors that clawed at my sanity. I stumbled backward, my feet catching the remnants of the shattered carousel, shards of painted wood cutting into my skin. Pain broke through the haze of dread, grounding me, a fleeting moment of clarity amidst chaos. I thought of the laughter from childhood, of joyous gatherings that felt so far removed from the horror now closing in on me. They had lived in the same darkness. Perhaps they had known it was always lurking, patiently waiting for the moment to strike. Yet, instead of retreating, the phantoms flared with excitement, their spectral forms rippling as they approached, their elongated limbs unfurling like dark petals. They moved with terrifying grace, every smile twisted into a question without words. Unwittingly, I found my eyes drawn toward my doppelganger, the gaunt woman now morphing into countless versions of myself. A gallery of possibilities threaded with anguish, all staring, all waiting for a response. Join us. Break the cycle. They chorused in harmonies filled with sorrow and longing. Only together can we reinstate the order of our blood. Only your acceptance can quell the hunger. Terror gripped my spine as their pleading intensified. I could feel the urge growing somewhere deep within, not just to embrace their call, but to understand the chilling void they inhabited. The essence of despair pierced through my resolve. What awaited if I stepped into their cries? Would it grant relief or damn me to inhabit this limbo forever? Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath me, the clearing pulsating as ancient roots twisted, forming intimidating walls that sealed my fate, trapping me. The beckoning voices changed. They morphed into whispers laden with promises of power, of unearthly knowledge hidden in the abyss of time. Something primal surged within me, the blood of the Harmon line thrumming like a wicked heartbeat, awakening a violent gravity. Clutching my head, I screamed, trying to drown them out. the cacophony of so many souls wrapped around me like chains forged in despair. The shadows toiled against the transparent barricade I found myself in, a prison fueled by free will defied. No, I will not join you. My voice cracked like glass. Then, as if in response, the shadows convulsed, an eerie hush descended across the scene, suffused with an unsettling stillness. The monstrous figures halted, their grins sharpening in the silence, and their eyes glimmered with an almost predatory glee. A single figure stepped forward, an embodiment of darkness, cloaked in remnants of fabric that billowed like smoke. The air grew colder, and with a flick of a wrist, a mist filled with haunting doings snaked through the space between us. Images danced violently before me. Rituals bathed in blood, family feasts intertwined with the celebrations of spectral beings, and a Childa Harmon child sacrificed to bind them to the earth forever. Witness who you truly are, it roared, a voice enveloping the air like a funeral dirge. Your ancestors called upon you long before your birth. We are meant to inhabit this world. It's your legacy to unveil the truth and to claim your birthright. I gasped as the shadows tugged at my soul, each muttering incantations that wafted like smoke through the air. With every syllable, the realization hit me harder. The darker memories lay dormant, prior lives unfolding like chapters in a cursed tome. The echoes of my forebears pushed against the walls of my mind, clawing for acknowledgement. In a moment of desperation, I concentrated on the faint connection I had to the human world all around, the gust of wind against my cheek, the dampness of earth beneath my knees. In its solidness, I felt a flicker of hope surge. I am not like you, I cried out. I refuse to bear this darkness. The blood can be rewritten. But even as I spoke, I understood. Resisting the pull of the abyss felt like pulling an organ from my chest. The laughter erupted again, but this time it wove a web of dread that tangled itself around me, tightening like a noose. They surged forward, phantoms orbiting an inevitable doom, their hands reaching out with cruel urgency. You do not know the true price of your denial. A disembodied voice echoed as my reality began to twist. The clearing merged with fresh scenes of horror and jubilation, the past and present converging into a spiral of delight and despair. In that harrowing rush, my connection to them grew, and I swayed on the edge of acceptance and rebellion. But the oppressive weight bore down. I knew that making a choice meant sealing my own fate. And just then, from beyond the fog, a sharp wind swept through, heralding the arrival of something darker between the trees. No longer mere specters of the past, shadows unfurling, dark tendrils reached toward me. Something far worse was on the horizon, a festering dread emerging from the very roots of the family tree. Your choice echoes through eternity, the spectral beings chanted, an unholy chorus, their outlines sharpening into grotesque figures. Welcome what was lost or pay the cost. As I locked eyes with my spectral twin, her empty gaze suddenly filled with alarming intensity. A scream built within me, a plea for understanding, for cleansing the darkness embedded in this demonic legacy. And just as realization struck, pulsing through the wave of gathering shadows, a figure materialized in the fog, lurching forward, waiting for the moment. My heart thundered as I turned, and in the horror of recognition, I gasped at the sight of a child, the child sacrificed so long ago, now poised as the harbinger of reckoning. Time froze as the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. What will you choose? I felt the air crackle with potent energy, teetering on the brink of revelation and ruin. A final ultimatum delivered by the darkness that encircled me. Would I embrace the shadows, or would I unleash something unfathomably worse? The child stood before me, a remnant of innocence cloaked in shadow. Her translucent form flickered like a dying flame, straining against the dense miasma enveloping us. Her eyes, no longer the wide orbs of youth, were pools of anguish, reflecting centuries of torment. Strands of hair hung in tatters, as though the very wind had conspired against her. And though her mouth did not move, I could hear her pleading. Save us, her voice rang out, echoing in the hollowness of my mind. End the curse. Behind her, the twisted forms of my ancestors surged like a tide breaking against the shore, terror manifesting in their eerie wails. They stretched forth, fingers contorted in longing, mouths agape as if trying to breach the cages of forgotten memories. The clearing began to pulse with their collective anguish, vibrating with an unearthly energy that set my teeth on edge. That I was awash with confusion and fear. The whispers of the dark figures merged into an unintelligible chorus, and I felt the weight of expectations bearing down on me. Would my choice be a release for them, or an invitation for something far worse? "Remember," the child cried, her small hand outstretched as if to grasp at something lost in the ether. "Remember the truth." In that instant, the ground beneath me began to tremble, roots and earth writhing like serpents, responding to the specter's escalating fervor. The boundaries of the world ripped asunder, and visions flooded into my mind. Flashes of the rituals I had scarcely comprehended as a child surged forth. A dim, flickering room filled with candlelight, where once I had glimpsed my family swaying in sync with the beat of drums. Laughter intermingled with ethereal cries, revealing masked figures draped in the skins of wild creatures who danced around a blazing fire, the air heavy with arcane scents beneath the veil of smoke. What had been mere stories whispered in the night came crashing into a brutal reality. I recalled the sharp pain in my mother's eyes, the way she deliberately avoided the old guitar strung with memories, the faces of those who never returned from the woods as the moon bloomed bright and full. The laughter turned sinister, a grotesque parody of joy reverberating in the air, and I stumbled as something rippled through my consciousness. The shadowy figures of my ancestors stepped closer, pooling around me, their spectral forms intertwining, filling the air with a malevolent hum. A dark yearning thrummed through my veins, a call to my very core that wove through time. I felt myself teetering on the precipice, the weight of the past calling out, urging me to relinquish my defiance and embrace the bewitching power hidden within. "Join us, child of the Harmon line," the disembodied voice coaxed, a slithering promise wrapped in velvet darkness. "Your sacrifice will bring harmony. Your acceptance will restore what has been lost." As their words dripped like poison into the air, the child cried out in desperation. "No, you must not give in." Her small hands balled into fists, and the ground rumbled as she pushed the shadows away. A flicker of light around Hera, barrier between the two worlds, banished the darkness, but the release she offered felt tantalizingly close. All at once, I could feel the collective memory, the forgotten incantations and rituals thundering at the back of my mind, pleading for liberation. Fatigue washed over me, the weariness of countless generations pressing against my shoulders like lead. "Stand firm," the child demanded, the warmth of her spirit a flicker against the encroaching cold. "You are stronger than them." But just as I took a step toward her, the shadows lunged forward, merging as one dark entity that surged with an intoxicating strength. I grappled with the sharpness of fear and the allure of belonging, each opposing force pulling at my heart, twisting my insides in a tempest of doubt. The figures spun even faster around me, and I felt myself being drawn into a whirlwind of despair and bitterness. The multitude of eyes converged, whispering my name in a haunting symphony that called out for submission. "You cannot escape. This is your destiny." "Please," I shouted, yearning for clarity. "What do I have to give to save you?" With that, the child's frame flickered, the light surrounding her fading, and I saw the familiar remnants of her past, the tragic realities merging with unfathomable terror that loomed close. Then, suddenly, from behind, a hand gripped at my arm, its touch icy and hollow. Whirling around, I met the gaze of yet another figure, this one shadowy but strangely familiar. It was my mother, her expression filled with sorrow. "Forgive me," she mouthed silently, as if breaking free from the chains that held her, and I felt the sharp edges of panic slice through my soul. The air shattered, and with a deafening roar, the shadows surged, forcing me to choose between battling the past or forging my own dark path. The harmony twisted once more, thrumming deeper, the roots of my family's darkness turning the soil underneath into a sweltering abyss as the power coursed through me. I felt the pull of the void intensified, threatening to drown out the last vestiges of light surrounding the child. I was trapped between realms, a prisoner of choices unmade, power unclaimed. And then it happened, a thunderous clap that split the silence. The ground buckled beneath us, and in an explosion of light and darkness, The world around me began to tear asunder, reality warping like a malfunctioning picture frame. Your choice. The blood's fate is in your hands. With a sickening lurch, the figures around me twisted into a cyclone of wails, and I struggled to retrieve a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. Make your choice, echoed 1,000 voices, and before I could react, the earth beneath me broke apart, plunging me into a gaping chasm, empty darkness swallowing every breath as spectral howls erupted into anguish. Inside the abyss, I desperately clutched at the remnants of my own sanity, as the last thing I saw was the child's terrified face, stretching out toward me, a final lifeline in a world twisted by dark legacies.
Don't lose yourself,
she cried, before the void consumed her plea. And just as the dark closed in, the sinister laughter rang from the depths, a chilling reminder that whatever lay at the end awaited me, hungry and unforgiving. I awoke in an unfamiliar space. The smell of damp earth and decay assailed my senses. Confusion wrapped around my mind like a shroud, making it difficult to breathe. I blinked against the swirling shadows that danced around me, coiling like serpents. What had happened? Where was I? Reality had shattered, and fragments hung in the air, scattered like worn-out dolls after an eerie performance. My body ached as if it had been pulled through a dark tunnel, and as I struggled to sit up, memories flooded my mind, whispers, laughter, agony. The last thing I remembered was the child, her desperate plea hanging in my ears. Had I succumbed to their malevolent call? I looked around, desperate to piece together the fragments of my existence, and my breath caught in my throat. I was in a grim, cellar-like chamber, the walls covered in grotesque images warped by shadows. Flickering candles lined the edges, casting erratic light that played tricks on my vision. But then, I noticed a central table draped in a tattered, moss-covered cloth. Something lay atop it, an old, cracked mirror. Striding closer, dread pooled in my stomach as I lifted my gaze. The moment I did, my reflection smiled back at mine, but that of the gaunt woman, the embodiment of my family's crushed spirits. Her skeletal grin morphed slowly into something sinister, her hollow eyes glimmering with an unholy thrill. "Welcome to the family reunion," she whispered, her voice dripping with venom. "You did so well to find us again." Panic surged in my chest as I tried to retreat, but her presence was an inescapable force that held me captive. "No, I am not like you," I screamed, but the sound echoed hollow against the stony walls. "Are you so sure?" she taunted, leaning closer, her hair thrumming with vitality. "Your blood breathes our legacy. We are one, inseparable by time or choice." Images flooded my mind, memories not solely mine but entwined with those of the Harmon family, laughing on the fatal night of their last celebration, a feast that turned into a sinister ritual, sacrifices made for the dark powers they sought. My heart pounded viciously, and in that chaotic swirl of recollections, clarity struck like an electric jolt. "You wanted me to join you. You wanted power to break free of the darkness." I shouted, but doubt lingered. Had I already taken that step? Had I sealed my fate? "Power is the key," she hissed, and shadows gathered around the table, forming into anguished faces, relatives, and specters of lost children. Their silent screams clawed at the air, demanding with every ghostly moan that I conform to the legacy they represented. It was a macabre assembly, begging me to understand the ripple of tradition now curling around my very soul. The mirror began to shimmer ominously, each glimmer revealing glimpses of horrific rituals, lives lost, and the encroaching darkness consuming everything it touched. "You can still be free," she crooned, but her voice was now layered with countless others, merging into a single haunting plea. "Join us, become the vessel, the guardian of all that we've lost." My pulse quickened, torn between repulsion and a dark allure as I felt the tug of ancestral ties binding me. I stepped back with instinctive dread, feeling the pull of the cursed connection strong as ever. Could I truly resist this? Did I even want to? The very act of claiming my identity as a Harmon promised a taste of power long forbidden, but at what cost? Suddenly, I was reminded of the child, the sacrifice. With a rush, her desperate face flooded my vision, a flickering specter trying to pierce through the darkness that clawed at her. I could hear her faint call, urging me to remember the path toward redemption that was still available. "No, I will not be one of you," I shouted, my voice echoing violently in the chamber, stirring something deep within the shadows. I felt their presence grow hostile, the temperature dropping as all anguish coalesced into a singular fury. And then I saw her again, the child, her luminous form shining through the shadows, a beacon of hope. "Fight it," she screamed, her voice resonating, breaking the veil of despair that enshrouded the chamber. As her words wrapped around me, a spark of defiance ignited. I lunged forward, eyes locked onto the mirror. How could I break this cycle? Poison and blood empowered me. I had to reject it. I grabbed the mirror, cold and heavy, and turned it toward my reflection, bracing myself for the horror it would reveal. "Look at what you can become." The gaunt woman's voice rose into a crescendo filled with rage. The shadowy figures writhed, their desperation palpable. But I would not yield. I wanted to shape-shift the nightmare into something far more liberating. I had witnessed enough evil. I would become the light that I focused, channeling the warmth of the child's spirit as her voice melded with my own. "I am not the inheritance of darkness. I sever this bond." The mirror's glass erupted with energy, light cascading against the walls, illuminating the dark chamber as it enveloped the room in brilliance. A blinding glow encased me, the cries of my ancestors mixing with the child's laughter. The shadows recoiled, shrieking in unison, lashing out as the mirror shattered around you as shards flew into the air. They revealed fleeting glimpses of my ancestors' hidden truths, the light cascading onto the weariness stained in their spirits, each memory morphing from horror to hope. The children, the families, once shackled by their choice, now riding the line between despair and rebirth. But just as I felt victory surge through the remnants of my heart, something eerie and chilling whispered from the shadows surrounding me. "You may break the cycle, but the darkness will always linger, young Harmon," spoke a voice that stole the warmth from my flesh. Even before I could comprehend its meaning, the ground quaked, and a figure crawled into Vaiwan Echo, disfigured and grotesque, a reflection of horror that would haunt me forever. Its eyes blazed with hunger, a grotesque imitation of humanity stalking towards me, lips curling into a smile filled with malice. I stumbled back, a new dread blossoming within me, and the figure extended a skeletal finger, pointing at my heart. "You cannot escape your heritage. Darkness remains a part of you. It makes you stronger?" it rasped. Panic surged, but understanding curdled as I faced my dreadful reflection, one last Tamia promise of power, forever wrestling with my humanity. Dread pooled in my stomach as I realized the shadows would always seek me, an unquenchable thirst, a mark that would never fully fade. In an instant, the echoes of the Harmon family would not be silenced. They had simply morphed into something darker. I could feel the power within me start to twist, displaying a seductive venture lingering beneath the surface. Suddenly, the air became thick with foreboding, and a voice whispered hauntingly through the remnants of shattered memories. "You reject our legacy, but your blood will sing to the darkness forever." And just like that, as the last fragment of light faded from the chamber, their laughter began a new and eternal specter of torment woven tightly with every strand of my being. In that moment of realization, a chilling truth settled deep within. I had escaped their grasp, but the shadows would never relinquish me. As I turned, retreating into the mist of the Appalachian night, a final thought echoed through me. Sometimes the greatest horror, after all, is to remain forever tethered to the darkness you tried so desperately to outrun.